The medical bay of the Celestial Harmony hummed with desperate energy as dozens of draconid physicians crowded around the massive crystalline bed. Upon it lay matriarch Silvara, the eldest of the albino dragon line, her once luminous scales now dulled to the color of ash. Her breathing came in ragged gasps that shook the reinforced walls. Commander Zarthix stood at the observation window, his own crimson scales bristling with barely contained grief. "How long?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "Hours, perhaps less," replied Dr. Zenith, mandibles clicking in distress. "The quantum venom has spread through her neural lattice. There's no cure in any of the 17 allied species medical databases." In the corner of the observation deck, a solitary human sat cross-legged on the floor, his eyes closed in what the draconids had learned to recognize as deep concentration. Marcus Webb had been Silvara's ward since the great matriarch had found him drifting in an escape pod 12 cycles ago, a lone survivor of a colony ship disaster. She had taken him in when no one else would, taught him the ways of the stars, and given him a home among beings 10 times his size. The draconids had whispered about it, of course. A human child raised by a dragon matriarch? Preposterous. Humans were useful for their mathematics and engineering, but they were soft, short-lived, and lacked any notable biological advantages. What could such a creature possibly offer a being as magnificent as Silvara? But Silvara had seen something in Marcus that others hadn't. She'd called him her hatchling of strange scales. Now, as she lay dying from an assassin's quantum blade, a weapon specifically designed to kill creatures of her stature, that human sat motionless, while an empire mourned. "The human hasn't moved in 6 hours, observed Zarthix. "Does he not understand what is happening?" "He understands," said Zenith softly. "Perhaps too well." Marcus opened his eyes. They were red-rimmed and bloodshot, but burning with an intensity that made several nearby draconids step back instinctively. He stood, his movements fluid despite his small stature, and walked toward the medical bay doors. "You cannot enter," Zarthix blocked his path. "The venom is designed to spread to anyone who makes physical contact with her neural field." "It would kill even you, human." Marcus looked up at the commander. At 5 feet 6 inches, he barely reached the draconid's chest plates. But something in his expression made Zarthix's protective stance falter. "I know," Marcus said simply. "Move. We cannot allow—" "She took me in when I had nothing. She taught me that family isn't about biology, it's about choice." Marcus's voice was steady, but tears carved tracks down his face. "She chose me. Now I choose her." "Move aside, Commander." The draconids exchanged glances. In their culture, such sacrifice was the highest honor, reserved only for bloodkin. But this human— Zarthix stepped aside. Marcus entered the medical bay alone. The air itself seemed to shimmer with the quantum venom's corrupted energy. He could feel it pulling at the edges of his consciousness, trying to unravel his neural pathways. "Little hatchling." Silvara's voice was barely a whisper, each word costing her dearly. "You should not be here." "Hush, Mother," Marcus said, climbing onto the crystalline bed. He pressed his small hands against her massive head, right where the venom had entered through the assassin's strike. "I've been studying, learning. You know how humans are. We're stubborn when we want to understand something." Outside, the draconids watched in horror and fascination as Marcus closed his eyes. His body began to glow with a soft, impossible light. "What is he doing?" demanded Zarthix. Dr. Zenith's instruments went wild. I don't understand. His neural activity is increasing exponentially. His brain is operating at— That's impossible. Humans can't achieve that level of quantum coherence. Their biology doesn't allow. But Marcus wasn't constrained by what was supposed to be possible. Humans, as it turned out, had an advantage that no one had properly understood. Their brains were quantum computers wrapped in biological tissue, capable of unprecedented neural plasticity. While draconids and other species had specialized efficient neural structures, human brains were beautifully chaotic, capable of rewiring themselves in real time. And Marcus had spent 12 cycles living in a quantum-rich environment, his developing brain adapting in ways that would have seemed like magic to Earth scientists. He dove into Silvara's neural lattice, following the pathways of corruption. The quantum venom was insidious, unraveling complex thought patterns and replacing them with entropy. But Marcus had learned to navigate these spaces from Silvara herself, During their long meditation sessions, where the venom was chaos, Marcus brought order. Where it was dissolution, he brought structure. His human brain, operating in ways it was never meant to but had adapted to nonetheless, began rewriting the corrupted code of Silvara's consciousness. The process was agony. Every second felt like fire racing through his synapses. But Marcus had lost everything once before. His colony, his biological family, his entire world. He refused to lose his mother again. Hours passed. The medical bay's instruments shrieked warnings as both human and dragon flatlined multiple times, only to surge back to life. The draconids could only watch as the impossible unfolded before them. Finally, as the station's artificial sun began to rise, the glow around Marcus faded. He collapsed onto Silvara's chest, unconscious but breathing, and Silvara's eyes opened, clear, bright, and filled with that ancient wisdom that had guided empires. "My hatchling," she rumbled, her voice strong once more. "What have you done?" Dr. Zenith rushed in, scanners active. The quantum venom was gone. Not neutralized, gone. Erased from existence as if it had never been. And Marcus's neural patterns showed changes that would take years to fully understand. Silvara carefully lifted Marcus with one massive claw, cradling him against her chest as he slept. "He dove into the quantum storm itself," she said softly, awe in her voice. "No other species would have survived what he just did. Their minds are too rigid, too structured. But humans—" She looked at the assembled draconids, her eyes blazing with pride. "Humans adapt. They break every rule, exceed every limitation, and rewrite reality itself when someone they love needs them." She gently stroked Marcus's hair with one claw. "You asked me once why I took in a human child. This is why. Not for what they are, but for what they choose to become." Commander Zarthix bowed deeply. "The Empire owes him a debt we can never repay." "No," Silvara corrected, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "The Empire has learned a lesson. Never underestimate what a human will do for family." As Marcus stirred in her grasp, mumbling something about just one more equation, Silvara began to purr, a sound that resonated through the station and brought tears to every draconid present. The human had done the impossible, and in doing so he'd proven once again why humanity, despite their small stature and short lives, earned the respect of every species they encountered. They were survivors. They were adapters. They were heroes. They were human, fuck yeah.